Thanks for having me, guys. First time back in Amsterdam for a while, I think. Yeah, I'm Andy, I'm the COO of bitFlyer Europe. We have known Bitcoin Wednesday for quite a few years since my business partner over there came back to a massive bull run of 2017. Feels like a lot has happened in just those few short years, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going to be happening over the next few years. So that's going to be the main focus of my presentation. I'm afraid it's not really that related to decentralized identity, more taking like a step back, broad view of the ecosystem, and just because it's trendy, I'm going to try and give some predictions of the future, as well as a recap of the past 10 years. Our timeline, we were incorporated in 2014. Our co-founders, Yuzo Kano and Mr. Komiyama, spent the first few months running bitFlyer from a bakery in Japan. The first trade happened on the platform in 2014. And then through a mixture of luck and skill, we were able to get the #1 market position by 2016, largely thanks to a very successful TV campaign where we managed to associate the word Bitcoin with bitFlyer. Based on that strength, we decided to expand, and in 2017, we received our licenses in the EU and the US, which I'll talk a little bit more shortly. And then we launched in Europe in January 2018. I joined the team a few months before then. And I sit in Luxembourg, which is our sort of EU expansion headquarters. We also, in the last year, launched our app and a tool called Instant Buy, which I'll go into in a bit more detail. So, bitFlyer, in numbers. We were founded in 2014. We've already got over 2 million, shortly to announce 2.5 million customers, about 250 employees globally, most of which are still in Tokyo. And we like to say that we're the only exchange which has been licensed in all of EU, Japan, and the US combined. And that includes the infamous BIT license from the NYDFS. We were the fourth ever company to get that, and the first non-American company to get the New York license. So we're pretty proud of that. We've also got a few dozen state money transmitter licenses. In Europe, we opened in 2017, but we launched in 2018, shortly after receiving the license. Currently, we have about 7 different cryptocurrencies listed, including Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, Lisk, and Mona Coin, which is like a very Japanesey sort of meme coin similar to Doge. We had a pretty good 2019. We're pretty proud. We launched our easy buy-sell platform for the EU market, which is more of a OTC product, more like where bitFlyer is the counterparty. You're buying and selling directly from us. We manage our own inventory. So we're trying to more like create an e-commerce experience for buying crypto, make it much, much easier than learning about limit orders and market orders and things like that. We added a bunch more coins, launched our app, and then more recently we've added Instant Buy, which is allowing people to use their more local payment methods. So I think for you guys that'll be ideal. In Germany, they like to use GiroPay and so forth, and of course, credit cards as well. We have been spending a lot more on kind of more traditional marketing means recently, so we're getting ourselves in the press a lot, and we've even been experimenting with airport ads. So this has been all over the airport in Luxembourg last month, and we run our own event program as well. And just talking a little bit about Instant Buy, which I mentioned, we had this product video, which is about a minute long, which explains a bit better what Instant Buy is all about, if the internet works.
There's a new way to buy cryptocurrencies. With bitFlyer Instant Buy, you can buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and many other currencies instantly. The same way you would buy any goods or services online. Buy verified coins directly from bitFlyer using Instant Buy. Coin transactions are verified by an independent third party. With Instant Buy, there's no need to wait for someone else to sell before you can buy. You'll never lose an opportunity to get in at the right time. With Instant Buy, you gain access to a wide range of European and local payment methods. And new payment methods are being added constantly. Instant Buy by bitFlyer, bringing a seamless, fast and transparent experience, and allowing everyone, anywhere to start trading. bitFlyer, where the world buys crypto.
So that's our retail product, and then I'll just quickly show you what our exchange looks like. Sorry. There we go. So this is bitFlyer. This is bitFlyer Lightning. Furthermore, let me just get this size right. Try that. Okay, it thinks it's a smartphone for some reason. Maybe the resolution is too low. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So I can't demo the exchange platform on this screen, but I welcome you to go and try it after the presentation. Back to the deck. Okay, so we have the retail product, we have the institutional trader product, and what's up next? Well, right now we're working on adding a lot more sort of localizations, so different European languages, starting with French, likely to be German next, and then Dutch, Polish, Italian, also lined up. And we're also continuing to add more payment methods, like P24 is like the equivalent of Ideal but for the Polish market. And then one of the things we're excited about is cross-border trading. So one of the interesting things about bitFlyer is that our Japanese market is one of the, if not the deepest, most liquid Bitcoin market in the world. The BTC JPY pair is like super successful and deep. And obviously, if you're like a big trader, high-speed trader, you want to have market depth, so you minimize slippage, have a good trading experience. So we want to open up our Japanese market to our other customers in the US and the EU. So coming soon, we'll be actually connecting all of our order books together so that any one of our customers can trade with anybody else. EU guy trading with Japanese guy, Japanese gal trading with a US person. We're going to be connecting all of our order books together, and we call that cross-border trading. So that's a little bit about us, a little bit about me. So now I'll move on to my recap of crypto for the last 10 years, which I call crypto adolescence. Obviously, Bitcoin has been around since sort of 2009, 2010, and it's like a lot has happened over the last 10 years. It's easy to forget, but for the first few years of its life, a lot of people were saying that Bitcoin was not going to succeed. Whether it's going to the protocol was going to get breached or hacked, whether it's just going to get stamped out by government, or whether people were going to realize or say that it doesn't have any intrinsic value. Of course, us crypto folk were quick to point out that fiat currencies don't really have any intrinsic value either. But no, Bitcoin, not only did it not die, but it succeeded massively, and it became the best performance asset of the last decade. Another thing that shall I push through? Hello. To the mic.
No, I turned this off.
Hello. So another thing that punctuated the last 10 years, of course, was civil disobedience, factions, civil wars. We had a bunch of forks, and Bitcoin split into multiple different projects. First of all, Bitcoin Cash, and then several other forks after that. It wasn't just Bitcoin, of course, it was several other cryptocurrencies. And there's good and bad things for that. I think some of these, especially the Bitcoin Cash discussion, became quite unpleasant, quite vitriolic. And I think part of the reason for that is that unlike in political debates, with cryptocurrency forks, once there's that kind of like a conflict of interest, once you actually own the token, then you're kind of monetarily incentivized to really like push your project, whether or not it ends up being the best thing. So I think that's kind of one of the reasons why it was particularly unpleasant. On the flip side, these forks created like a lot of space for innovation. So there were like a lot of different technologies being tried out, and I think overall it was good for the industry to see how different features worked. Of course, you can't have a presentation about Bitcoin without talking about price. I've got one slide about price. There were 5 big bubbles being popped in the last 10 years. Most of the people in the space joined after 2015, so they've only ever seen one. But of course, those of us that have been around for a bit longer, we know that there have been several. Now, for anyone Thanks. Am I back? So we all know what happens next. Cambrian explosion, basically. Now, of course, these projects were largely taking advantage of the fact they could easily raise money without sort of going through the long sort of regulatory processes. And yes, a lot of them were scams. In fact, there was analysis that shows of all of the ICOs that happened over the last few years, 80% of them or more were scams. 11% have either failed or gone dead, and only 8% of them ever even traded on a marketplace, and of which we can say 4% were kind of successful. The rest are sort of flatlined. So it was a lot of fun. We taught us a few things. It kind of gave birth to the next steps in terms of STOs and things like that. But yeah, it was basically, many of those things failed. Mark Zuckerberg. He had a bad year last year. But yes, stablecoins. Stablecoins, of course, have emerged as like a less volatile crypto-native asset that we can use. Nominally, they started out because people wanted to trade in and out of Bitcoin and other crypto assets without having to sort of use fiat on-ramps or use fiat-based exchanges because it was just easier to transmit. But of course, like, for me, the bigger purpose of stablecoins are for smart contracts. I think we can hopefully agree that the first widespread use of smart contracts are not going to be based on Bitcoin or Ethereum as a token itself. It's going to be sort of the DAIs or the USDCs or the Paxos of this world. Libra, of course, it moved it to the top of the agenda for many governments. They finally started to take notice, so for that I'm actually grateful. I think stablecoins are obviously going to continue to increase in popularity over the next few years. We just heard about Libra today. Apparently they've now scaled back their ambitions. They're not going to have a basket-based token, but they're going to issue sort of US dollar Libra and Euro Libra, which I'm not surprised. I think the main criticism of governments was that, or the main worry of governments is that if you have a basket-based token, then they're not completely in control of the monetary policy. At least that's my theory. I think we may continue to see basket-based Libra stablecoins in the future, but I don't think Libra is going to be it, personally. At the beginning of the decades, it was the Wild West. There was almost no regulation at all. But I think we can safely say that by the end of 2019, cryptocurrency is now a regulated space. It's the various shades of grey. There are some countries which have been very open to it, some that have not. We just heard about India today. The Supreme Court has just lifted the ban on all cryptocurrency trading that was introduced by the Reserve Bank of India 2 years ago. So I think this is the way it's going. It's quite progressive. We have different countries, different approaches. Here in the EU, we have a payment institution license from the CSSF, which is Luxembourg's regulator, which lets us operate our business throughout the EU. In the US, we have about 48 different licenses.
In Japan, we have the virtual currency exchange license, which is a tailor-made bespoke license developed by the JFSA, which is like specific to crypto exchanges. So, in any 1 week, we'll be having, dozens of different exchanges with dozens of different regulators. So we've learned a thing or two about regulation. Of course, this is mainly on the fiat crypto side, and there's a whole new world of crypto-to-crypto businesses and exchanges and models that will be less regulated, but I'll be coming to that shortly. People say that blockchain doesn't have a use case. In that case, a lot of these companies, they wouldn't have a reason to exist. But, I made this diagram as big as I could to try and make it readable. It's still not readable. The reason it's not readable is because there are hundreds of companies working on blockchain now. These aren't ICOs, these aren't shitcoins. These are real businesses mostly doing real projects in areas such as consumer, enterprise, infrastructure, and I think that's going to continue to explode. So that's my rapid summary of the last 10 years. If we talk about the next 10 years, in the 1920s, there was recovering from World War I, repair and deferred spending, and a lot of people called it the Roaring Twenties. I like that analogy. I think that we could be looking at the Roaring Twenties for crypto. It's going to be a big, big decade. And the first thing I predict, I'm just one guy, so take what I say with a pinch of salt, but I reckon by the end of this decade, we will have one blockchain that has 1 billion daily users. And I think that's going to be driven by a number of things. First of all, we will continue to see scalability improvements, layer 2 networks, and other kind of privacy technologies, which will help with scale. Why would privacy help with scale? Well, it's because with things like ZK snarks and optimistic rollups and so on, you can move a lot of computation off layer 1 onto layer 2, and that lets your throughput greatly improve. Also, I think the line between permissioned private and public blockchains will continue to blur. In fact, the main reason why institutions don't want to use public blockchains is because they don't want certain information to be available to anyone that cares to take a look. But with privacy technologies, I think that's going to change. With ZK snarks, or you can have a private enterprise using a public blockchain for all of its public benefits, but while still keeping all of their precious data private. So, thank you, Adobe. So I think public, private applications alike will both be using the same blockchain or one or more blockchains, but there will be a big one. Also, crypto startups, I believe there'll be a new breed of companies, a new breed of crypto startups. 10, 20 years ago, we would talk about IT companies, internet companies. Now we just call it tech companies, right? Because basically all technology companies use the internet nowadays in one way or another. In fact, all companies, technology or otherwise, use the internet in one way or another. I think it's going to be the same with crypto companies. We're going to increasingly think of crypto companies less as crypto companies, but it'll just be something which gradually gets rolled into loads and loads of different companies, loads of business models. Crypto will become the new sort of tech meme. Now, when I say a new breed, I think there'll be 3 things that make crypto startups different to the sort of things we're used to. Number 1, they're going to be raising their funds using tokens rather than traditional raising. Number 2, they are going to be able to issue tokens to their early users to turn them into evangelists in the same way that companies issue stock options to employees. If you can issue tokens for the early users, you can basically bootstrap or incentivize the rapid growth of your company in an early stage, and that was never possible before blockchain and before tokens. I think we're going to see a really interesting business case and use of that. And finally, they're going to be globally native, right? So instead of having a company that sets up in one country and then painstakingly expands one country at a time, adopting their regulations, adopting their payment methods, I think we're going to see companies which are just kind of everywhere from the beginning. And that's what's going to drive this kind of massive scale. Another thing that will drive massive scale is the notion of decentralization. So while companies like bitFlyer are going to continue to move towards being more like financial institutions using existing regulation, there's a whole new world of the decentralized systems and decentralized finance which will emerge. So I'm talking about like once you convert your fiat into crypto, then you're in this sort of new magical place where everything is sort of crypto to crypto, and you can like interface with like DeFi. We're talking DEXs, DeFi, dApps, decentralized identity. This will really grow fast, I think, in the next 10 years, especially because these companies won't be regulated like financial institutions, which means that they will be able to innovate and grow and try new things out at a much more exponential rate. And we're already seeing that with DeFi, right? DeFi is like, it's like the big bang right now. It's just exploding. And that's because these guys are just acting like technology companies. They're not acting like financial institutions. But you know, it's not all positive. I think DeFi is interesting, it's fun, but it does bring new risks. Because when you switch to the DeFi paradigm, yes, you maybe remove counterparty risk, but you just replace it with smart contract risk, right? Or some other type of risk. Instead of like trust in me, it'll be like lock with me. So you're getting all of these protocols, and the point of this slide is to say that this diagram on the left is like an architectural diagram of MakerDAO, and you know, the user experience is, oh, hey, I can deposit some Ether and I can mint myself some DAI. But behind the scenes, like it's super, super complicated. So we have to trust that this is all working properly. And so while the alternative is your traditional bank, whereas like, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, the alternative is a hyper-transparent, hyper-complex, emerging, new, young, immature system that maybe only a few people truly understand. So that comes with its own risk. Another trend, and I actually have a whole other presentation that I could make on this one slide alone, but to summarize, I think blockchain is a barrier-removing technology, right? It removes barriers to cost, it removes barriers to reach, and it removes barriers to innovation. And what I think people sort of maybe don't quite realize is that when you break down these sort of human barriers between the different layers of our economic stack, you enable like all sorts of vertical access for software. So in short, I think we're going to move through a world of like human barriers, walled gardens, protected business models, to this world of like hyper-accessible, like hyper-mobile economic activity. I think DeFi is just the start, but I imagine a world where you have software and like, autonomous agents doing all sorts of different things, creating loans, investing in each other, lending to each other, tokenizing things, you know, investing, whatever, all in code. So we're going to sort of basically move to this much, much faster machine economies. And finally, central bank digital currencies. Obviously, these have been sort of supercharged by the Libra thing. I think they're going to become, you know, a big theme of the decade. I think China will be first, maybe Japan soon after, the US. Plenty of small countries have announced pilots, or they've announced some launch of something, but it's only like a small piece of the securitization. But I think it's just too tempting for governments, right? Once they move everyone to CBDCs, then not only can they finally eliminate cash and have full like visibility in what you're doing, but they also take the brakes off monetary printing. Right now, I feel like the only thing that's kind of reining in the central banks in terms of quantitative easing is the fact that, you know, you have all of these commercial banks and sort of networks of other banks, and they all have capital requirements, and that kind of causes some restraint. Once everyone moves to CBDCs, then, you know, it's open market, open season. I think there'll be like huge amount of monetary expansion possible. That's why I call it modernization or menace at the bottom, because I think there are plenty of benefits as well, but I think we're going to have to be careful. So that's the main ones. Just a couple of bonus predictions. I think we'll get more institutional engagement. I think by consolidation, I don't mean like M&A, which I think will happen, with like, especially with exchanges. There'll be a lot of M&A. But even with blockchain projects, I think economic weight, developer mind space, all these types of things, like projects will begin to combine together again. And that might even be in the form of, you know, blockchain project A has similar goals to blockchain project B. They decide to merge. Blockchain B actually sort of becomes acquired, like it swaps its tokens for A tokens and sort of unites. Developers unite, communities unite. But it's interesting that we can use tokens to actually kind of reverse merge with each other. So I think there'll be a lot of that going on. You know, we don't need 8 different privacy coins. We don't need 10 different smart contract platforms. I think it's inevitable in the long run. But for now, they're all kind of racing to be the de facto standard. I think regulators, you know, they're trying their best. We believe in regulation is pretty important for the exchange space. But it kind of feels sometimes like for every time a regulator issues a new directive or new rule, they answer one question, but they create 10 more questions. And that by definition, they have to be reactive and not proactive. And there's a lot of smart people at the regulators that actually get this stuff, but I don't think they'll be able to necessarily keep up with the exponential growth of things like DeFi and these other systems that need completely new frameworks. So facing that challenge, I think there'll be a increasing strain between regulation and innovation. I just hope that they don't make sort of blanket bans or use blunt tools to cripple the industry. And then, I think there'll be a lot of innovation in consensus mechanisms as well, which is a bit of a more technical topic. But already, it seems like every few months we're seeing a new proof of something: proof of work, proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of all sorts of different things. And even within proof of stake, there's just millions of different types. So those are my sort of short bonus predictions. So that's it. Hope you've enjoyed it. Sorry, I've gone through it pretty quickly. I tried to cover a lot of ground. You can find me here, or you can visit bitflyer.com/en-EU for the European version of our exchange. And I'd just like to end by saying that we have coupons for all of you. If you want to take a coupon worth 10 euros in Bitcoin for free, then please either approach me or the guy there with the nice haircut, and we'll be happy to give you some Bitcoin for free to be credited to your bitFlyer account. So thank you for listening. And if you've got any questions, please let me know.
Questions for Andy?
After all that has happened, do you think there's still a future for ICOs? As you briefly discussed, fundraising through tokens.
I think STOs will become a much bigger theme. ICOs will still be possible. Yeah, there is a future. It won't be in the same. It'll kind of rhyme with what happened in 2017, 2018, but I don't think it'll be quite the same. I think a lot of projects will continue to characterize themselves as STOs, or even if they don't want to, they will be labeled as security tokens by the various regulators around the world. So that'll be a much bigger theme. But it's kind of exciting, right? Because there's different subsets within STOs. We've got traditional existing securities already, like your Apple stock or whatever, which could be tokenized. Why would you do that? Well, it's because you get all those benefits such as 24/7 trading, divisibility, like fractional ownership, built-in compliance, things like that. Then you'll get new tokens, new crypto tokens, which will be security tokens. You'll even get existing crypto tokens like Bitcoin, which I think will have its own security token wrapper. And that will just be so that different types of investors like pension funds, hedge funds will be able to more able to invest in cryptocurrencies and other assets because they have certain mandates, certain rules. And then you get brand new business models that have never before been investable, which will become investable. So I'm talking things like investing in the future earnings of an MBA student, or investing in an actor's popularity, or investing in a family business, or these types of new investment models which will be possible through STOs. So I think that's going to move quite fast as well.
Even hybrid tokens where you combine utility components and security components.
Yeah, that's it.
With the forecast about future, what is your prediction on regular currencies with fiat and the current financial model?
Many of them will be digitalized. I think digitalized, like central bank digital currencies will continue to become a thing. I think once one big country does it, it'll be too tempting for the others to avoid it. They're all going to follow suit. I think cash is probably going to be finished after a while. Maybe less so in Germany and Japan, but especially in countries like Sweden and other European countries, I think cash will be. I mean, even in China, they're now using coronavirus as like they're using it as a sort of excuse to say, oh look, cash is really bad because they're all really dirty and you can capture the virus from notes, which is true, but I can't help thinking that it's a way for them to accelerate their own agenda and to prepare people for the inevitable like CBDC, which will come soon, which for them will be just as much about social engineering and kind of social scoring than it will be about sanitation and like hygiene. So yeah, I don't think I'm not a maximalist. I don't think Bitcoin is going to like wipe out all the banks. I think they're going to exist in parallel for quite a while to come. But yeah, I mean, fiat currencies, like they all come to an end eventually, right? There have been like 500 different fiat currencies. They've all failed through the same mechanism. I don't think any of them will be around forever. But of course, like the US dollar is not going to be gone tomorrow. The euro is not going to be gone tomorrow. I think they will just continue to adopt these new technological paradigms.
Hi. With all the fragmentation in all the different cryptos, do you think there is a threat for the main Bitcoin at the moment? As in, is the best strategy, in your opinion, to diversify on the little ones, or is still fine if one wants to hold to the main one? Because there's been a lot going on in general. And the second one, your instant solution, instant payment. Is it just for your own platform, or would that also help like traditional, let's say, Bitcoin core users who are still experiencing delays sometimes in transactions?
I'll answer the second one first. So Instant Buy is a bitFlyer product. So it's basically a way for you to use our platform to buy things easily with traditional payment methods. On your other question, yeah, when people ask me, they want to get into crypto and they're like, oh, but is it too late for Bitcoin? Should I like buy some other things? I try to steer them towards Bitcoin. I say, look, start with Bitcoin, maybe Ether. If you want to like go into sort of alts, then do your homework. Most of them are garbage. Some of them like are quite promising. Do I think Bitcoin will be replaced? No, I don't. And like people like Ray Dalio say, or Warren Buffett, actually, forget Warren Buffett. Ray Dalio says that he doesn't like Bitcoin because it's only as good until the next best thing comes along. What I think he fails to understand is that we will never be able to bootstrap another like global store of value currency like Bitcoin again, because Bitcoin got from like 0 to 1 under the radar when no one's really paying attention, and by then it already had like loads of hash power and it's like super secure. If you tried to make a competitor to Bitcoin now and you had half a success and it started to take off, it would get immediately attacked and taken over. So I don't think I think Bitcoin is very special in that way, in that it was first. It's got, of course, the network effects, but it's now got that security budget that is just unbreakable, and I think people will continue to value that the most as its property.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So privacy in terms of cryptos has been a fairly prominent theme tonight. You seem to say that Bitcoin is going to be the dominant player. However, my understanding is that ZK Snarks is native to Ethereum. Do you not believe that Ethereum, because of ZK Snarks, will provide this zero knowledge proof ecosystem where it has the potential to overtake the market position of Bitcoin?
Well, I don't necessarily think that Bitcoin is like. I didn't mean to give the impression that Bitcoin is the only one that's going to succeed. I think Bitcoin will probably be the only one that's like really a proper store of value. Well, actually, as I say that, I think Ethereum has increasingly got monetary like properties now. But I think you only really need one like super secure blockchain backed by like trillions of hashes of mining power. You only really need one like widespread global like smart contract platform like Ethereum or maybe Tezos or something like that. You only need like there will be kind of one winner at each layer, sort of store of value, smart contracts, like governance. And I feel like every time like people think that they've now got the full, you know, the full blockchain solution, then some other kind of unanticipated stakeholder comes into the fray. Like, oh, now we need to think about regulators. Oh, now we need to think about governance. So like as the stakeholder universe expands, there will be more blockchain projects, but probably at each layer there will be sort of one main winner. I think Ethereum has obviously got a huge head start in terms of DeFi and a massive developer community. It has its own governance issues. Yeah, I think, I don't think Bitcoin is, I mean, it's true that Bitcoin over time can also adopt some of these things like ZK snarks and other features, but that doesn't mean it will, you know.
And I did have a follow-up but unrelated question. How do you go about compliance in terms of your exchange?
So yes, so we are trying to follow the kind of, I shouldn't say a competitor name, but like the Coinbase approach of like just being squeaky clean, legitimate, regulated. So in fact, we were like on the first group of companies to be issued with the virtual currency exchange license in Japan. We've got this one in Europe from the CSSF. US I've already covered. So, you know, we think that regulation is not going anywhere. It's not going away. It's I mean, especially as the decentralization, the whole DeFi thing continues to explode, and regulators, they just won't be able to. There's just no way they'll be able to like control that, I don't think. So they will increasingly focus on the gateways, right? And we are one of the gateways. In terms of getting your fiat from the old system into the new system, you have to go through a fiat exchange. So, you know, that's why loads of new regulation is now including crypto. That's why like AMLD5 and like all these other things like are now sort of specifically including crypto in their mentions. And, you know, we have to follow all the rules. AML, KYC, transaction monitoring, IT controls, governance, and yeah, we spend a lot of time and money on it because we think it's important. But it's been a bit of a long game. There've been a lot of like fly-by-night exchanges that have come and go. They try to make a quick buck in like a sort of grey area, but we always sort of knew that eventually, you know, this was going to be an important thing to have tight, and that's what we've done.
So I have two questions about bitFlyer. First question is, what's your unique selling point? So why would I use bitFlyer, not Bitstamp or Kraken? And the second one is, what do you think about DAX or self-custody exchanges, or maybe more? Are you planning to go in that direction? Is it something interesting for bitFlyer?
You mean decentralized exchanges? The second question.
Or self-custody, yeah.
So,
like something like integration with Ledger Nano or something like that.
I see. So on the first question, so what we're proud of is our deep liquid markets in the JPY pair, which is why we're opening up our books to other countries. We've got very tight security. We've hired people from the US DoD. I hate to say, we've never been hacked, but we've never been hacked. Yeah, touch wood. We like our product. We're focusing on customer experience. We think that customer experience is what's going to differentiate us from some of our competitors. And then, of course, most importantly, there's the licensing. There aren't that many exchanges which can say they're licensed globally. And we think people who haven't really cared about it so much before, they are starting to care about it because they can see that it gives them that stamp of approval, that safety. We also have the track record of being one of the oldest exchanges and the sort of Japanese heritage. So we say those are our main selling points. We're trying to increase our product range, list more coins, add payment methods, et cetera, but everyone else is doing that as well. So for us, we just focus on the heritage, the safety, the regulation, and the scale. In terms of DEXs, yeah, self-custody is interesting. Obviously, the problems with decentralized exchanges is that they're not that fast. They're not that, they're still a bit tricky to use. If you're a trader that wants to make lots of trades or big trades and without much price slippage, you have to use centralized exchanges because you have to have centralized liquidity pools, a very fast order book, these types of things. So yeah, I mean, on a personal level, I think DEXs are fascinating. On a like company level, I think they're interesting, but it's not within our core focus right now. And you know, like people, sure, I use a hardware wallet. I have like different ones. I like Trezor, I like Ledger. But the reality is that people don't want to look after their own coins at the moment. They want somebody who has a license to look after it for them. They don't know enough about it. It's not very easy to learn how to do it properly. Like, you know, derivation paths and like mnemonic seeds and you know, like passphrases versus passcodes versus PIN numbers versus seeds. Like it's still difficult. So until that becomes like as easy as email, I don't see the self-custody will become a big demand from customers, except for the sophisticated ones.
Thank you, Andy. Andy Bryant.
Thank you.